Hello everyone, welcome back to SBD series. Hopefully you've been enjoying the series so far and you're smashing it. My name is Walid Al-Morsi and I'm here today to talk about the custom sensitive information type, or custom SIT as we call them. Now, if you recall from episode 2, when we did a data discovery for our on-prem and the cloud information, we discovered a lot of PII information, credit card information, etc. But we also have a requirement to start protecting our COVID-19 related information, whether that would be marketing or research results. So we spoke about the sensitive information types out of the box that are pre-canned, pre-configured, that available to you to use. But we've also mentioned that there will be a need for a custom information type usage if the pre-canned or the pre-configured sensitive information types couldn't do what you want. In this case, COVID-19 related information obviously is not covered by the pre-configured or pre-canned sensitive information types. This is where we start using the custom information types.
So let's start with our agenda for today, as we always do. First, we will go over the last episode recap. Then we will start on the client-side auto label. Then we will start talking about COVID-19 Custom SIT, which is the main topic for today, followed by the COVID-19 labeling behavior and logic. And then we will close by going through the client-side auto label and custom SIT demo. So let's get started. So in the last episode, we went over the sensitivity labels for content versus containers overview. Then we reviewed our classification taxonomy for containers. And then we went through a very awesome demo on the MIP sensitivity labels for containers. So let's start by talking about the MIB auto label feature. Today, we will talk about the client-side auto label, where in the next episode, we will talk more about the service-side auto label. So what is the client-side auto label? Simply put, it's the ability to automatically assign or recommend a sensitivity label to files and emails when it matches specific conditions that an organization specifies. Why it's important? It's important for few reasons. First, you don't need to train your users when to use each of your classifications. Two, you don't need to rely on users to classify all content correctly. And the last reason is users no longer need to know about your policies. They can instead focus on their work. As a rule, and this is only for now, which may change slightly in the future, when content has been manually labeled, that label will never be replaced by any automatic labeling mechanism. So how is this done? The configuration flow consists of the following 3 steps. Number 1, the administrator defines the auto label conditions in the label definition. Number 2, the administrator published the labels to users and groups via the label policies. Number 3, the labels are automatically applied or recommended when users are working on supporting client applications. For our demo today, we will configure the client-side auto label to automatically apply the highly confidential label on all emails and documents where their content match our COVID-19 custom SIT, which we will go over in the next slide. Let's talk about what we will be looking for in our information that we consider COVID-19 related data that we need to identify and protect. When you configure your custom SIT, you mainly focus on 2 parameters. Those are the primary element and the supporting element. So what is the primary element? The primary element is the main info you want to detect in content. You can define the primary element using a regular expression, regex or regex, depends on where you come from, keyword list, keyword dictionary, or functions. As you can see here, we have chosen to create our own keyword dictionary for COVID-19 terms that we will be looking for in our content. And we will show you also how to upload your dictionary into the service as well. Next is the supporting elements. By adding supporting elements, it will increase the likelihood that the detected info is a true match. For example, let's say we want to detect COVID-19 related information. As you can see from the primary element keyword dictionary, not every email or document that has the word vaccination or quarantine necessarily contains COVID-19 research information that need to be protected. So we can add supporting elements to look for related text near the keyword dictionary words, such as COVID, lockdown, and virus words. When the primary element is matched, and supporting elements will match only when found within the character proximity to the primary element. So in our case, the supporting elements we chose were a mix of regex and any of the built-in social security number function, Australian medical account number function, or ICD-10 codes from the out-of-the-box dictionary. As a rule, the more supporting evidence, the more confidence into matching the information and the less false positives that you will get. Let's talk about the labeling behavior. And again, we are talking exclusively about the Office built-in labeling client here. When both a regular user and a COVID-19 research user send or share COVID-19 information, either in an email or a document. Here, you can see a regular user on the top and a COVID-19 researcher at the bottom. Both are dealing with COVID-19 information in an email or a document, whether they know or not. This is important to call out, as sometimes users don't really know if the information they are dealing with should be protected or not, despite all the trainings provided. Let's take the regular user first. Before an email is sent or a document is saved, the user may or may not apply a sensitivity label manually from the sensitivity button in the Office application. If you recall from SBD episode 5, we did not enforce mandatory label on any regular users. We only enforced it on COVID-19 research group. So for a regular user, if they choose not or simply forgot to select label when their email or document contains COVID-19 data, the client-side auto label that we talked about minutes ago, and you will see how we configure it in a few minutes, will kick in and apply the highly confidential label on the email or a document before it leaves the user's client application. So we have no issue with this scenario as the information is now properly protected. But what if the user manually applied the label? In that case, the client-side auto label will not kick in. As we all know, manual label trumps all other auto label capabilities, for now at least. So we have two possibilities here. The user correctly applies the label that is highly confidential. In that case, we have no issue as the information is properly protected. But what if the label was incorrect, as in the user applies the label general instead of highly confidential label? Well, in this case, the information is not properly protected, and we have an issue here, as the client-side auto label will not kick in and correct the label. But let's park this issue for now. Now, let's move on and talk about a COVID-19 research user. Again, before an email is sent or a document is saved, the user may or may not apply a sensitivity label manually. Again, if you recall from SBD episode 5, we did enforce mandatory label on all users that are members of the COVID-19 research group. So there is no way that an email or a document to be sent or saved without a label. And obviously, This is also true if the user selects the label before they get prompt with mandatory labels. And by enforcing the mandatory label, which is pretty much a manual label, the client-side auto label has no play here. Again, because the manual label trumps anything else. If the user selected the correct label when prompted by mandatory label, which is highly confidential, then we have no issue here as the information is properly protected. But if the user selected the incorrect label, whether on purpose or by mistake, this is where we will have an issue. We will end up with a situation similar to the one above, where a piece of information is manually labeled with the incorrect label, and there is no auto label capability currently exists to override this. So here you go. We have three possible situations in our design, or we call logic, where we have a potential information protection violations. So you may wonder, what can we do to fix that? The answer is DLP. With DLP, and as we will discuss when we start the DLP episodes in this series, we can set up DLP policies that look for our COVID custom SIT in emails and documents and block them on the way out. Regardless of the email or the document sensitivity label assigned, DLP will inspect the content and decides whether it's allowed to be shared or sent externally. So it does what it claims to do, preventing data leakage. This is a perfect example where MIP and DLP are working together hand in hand, not instead of each other. We will talk more about this when we start the DLP segment of this series. Now, someone may ask, hey, client-side auto label is not yet available on iOS and Android, only on Windows, Mac OS, and on the web. Yeah, I read the documentation. Now, while this is true for the time being, the DLP here will play as a catch-all for all scenarios. Also, in the next episode, when we discuss the server-side auto label, you will see how this also can mitigate the iOS Android use case. With that, now let's move to the demo.
So before we configure custom sensitive information type, let's walk you through what we are going to configure. We are going to configure one custom sensitive information type to look for anything related to the COVID-19 research with three different confidence levels: the low confidence level, the medium confidence level, and then the high confidence level. So obviously, the more you move to the high confidence level, that's the more evidence or more proof that we can gather within or locate within the data to show this is a high confidence match. So before we do that, let me show you a couple of files that I have created beforehand for testing. The first file that you can see here is our COVID-19 dictionary, which basically contains some COVID-19 related words that we need to match on, or the criteria that we will match on. As you can see, it has quarantine, patient zero, symptoms, all the COVID-19 buzzwords. The second file that I need to show you is just a random test file that contains lots of information, as you can see. That might be like COVID-related words, as we said, some random PII, as well as some ICD-10 words as well. And this file we will be using for our testing. So let's get started. Okay, now we are on the compliance portal. So first thing we have to do is go into data classification. Now, under data classification, we will go to sensitive information types. Then we will click on create sensitive info type. Give it a name, which we will call COVID-19 data. Full description, click next. Now, let's create a pattern. As we said, we have 3 different confidence levels. Here on the portal is called pattern. So let's create the first one. We will start with the low confidence. So this is the absolute minimum that we need to match on when we talk about the low confidence. So let's add the primary element. The primary elements could be regex, could be a keyword list, could be a keyword dictionary, or a function. So for this scenario, we decided on starting with keyword dictionary. Here you can click to choose from an existing dictionary list, which we haven't created any custom ones. And also you have the option to upload your own dictionary. In this case, as I showed you before, we have our own dictionary created for this one. So let's click upload and then upload text file. Once it is uploaded, you can see all of your words included in your dictionary being uploaded here, as you can see, and we can call it COVID-19. Then click done. So once you selected the dictionary as your primary element, we are not going to select anything else as an evidence. So basically what that means that if an email or a document has a word included in that dictionary, it will be called or matched as a low confidence COVID-19 custom SIT. So we click create. Now let's move on to the next pattern, which is the medium confidence. So in this case, we will again match again the dictionary, but we will add more of a supporting element. Let's see how that is done. So again, we will upload the dictionary. In this case, not upload. We will select from an existing one because we've already uploaded that. As you can see, the dictionary one, add. Done. For the character proximity one, so if the service detected one of the words included in the dictionary in a close proximity to the additional element or the supporting element that we are going to specify in a minute, you can specify how many characters they are far apart. In this specific scenario, we will say anywhere in the document. We don't have any pattern to match on that one. So once we select the anywhere in the document, as we said, we can add supporting elements or a group of elements. Again, you will have similar options. For this one, we will select regular expression. For this one, we will give it a name. And then we have to specify the regular expression. Again, for those of you know, regular expression is the language that you can specify terms or patterns of matching on what you're looking for. For this specific one, we have created a list of words that we can detect or match upon. So I'm going to paste it here. So basically, if we found any of those buzzwords, COVID, COVID-19, COVID-19 with a space, coronavirus, lockdown, etc., we will match on that. Now, you will notice that I will have the question mark I, which basically says case insensitive. So regardless, so if the user put COVID in all lowercase or COVID in all uppercase, it won't matter. So we will catch it. And for this specific one, we're not going to add any validators. And we just click done. So basically what medium confidence means here. So if we match any word with the dictionary, anywhere in the document with any of the regex words, to us, that means medium confidence. Create. Now, let's move on to the high confidence one. Again, so we will start with the dictionary. choose from existing, select our COVID-19 dictionary, click add, done. Now for the add supporting elements, again, we are taking it one step higher than the medium confidence. So we will have the regular expression again. This time we can select from existing, and you can see all the default out of the box one. We can just search for the COVID-19 one that we just created. Select it and add. So this is exactly the same as the medium confidence. Now we need another or an additional supporting element. In this case, we will add a function. So the function, or as it's called, entity. So this is basically a pre-configured or a pre-canned pattern that Microsoft created for you to be used within the custom sensitive information type, as well as it's used out of the box sensitive information type. For example, for the US Social Security number, the string that you're looking for has to have a keyword close to it to be able to be identified as a Social Security number information. So for this one, let's select what we just mentioned, so SSN. And let's take the function of SSN. Again, this is pre-configured for you. We don't have to do anything. Now we're back to the high confidence one. And again, don't forget to select anywhere in the document. So basically any word that is matched from our COVID-19 dictionary on top of any word that is detected from our regex and Social Security number identified in the information, that will be a high confidence for us. So this is only now for testing, but we will go back and add more functions as we move on. Create. Next. Now, under the recommended confidence level for any compliance portal policy or a service that relies on the confidence level of the data, whether it's alerting or logging, etc., you have the opportunity to choose now what level of the confidence do you need the report at. So in this one, we will select medium confidence level and we'll move on. Click create. And then we're done. So go back to the sensitive info types. Let's look for our COVID-19 custom SIT. Here it is. Just click on it. Now you can see a summary of the configuration of this specific custom SIT, but also you can test it. So let's test it. It will ask you to upload a file. So I'm going to upload the file that I showed you earlier. Click on upload file. Now we've got the file uploaded. Let's click on test. Now, as you can see, we have matched all three confidence levels that we had set up. So low, medium, and high confidence. Now we finish. So we know our custom sensitive information type is working. We finish and move on to the next section. Now, if you remember correctly, Maka took us through setting up all the labels within the SBD tenant: public, general, confidential, and highly confidential. So basically, anything that is related to COVID-19 research information has to be marked as highly confidential. We have what is called auto labeling, which we will be discussing in the next episode, which comes into two flavors, the client side and the server side. So basically, we need to tell the highly confidential label that if any information that match the COVID-19 custom SIT is detected, it has to be automatically marked as highly confidential. So let's go and do that on the client side. So once you jump on the compliance portal, you go to the information protection. We are looking at the client side of things. So under labels, you can see here auto labeling policies, which will be discussed with Brendan in the next episode. But for this one, as we said, we will discuss the client-side auto-labeling. So let's click on the highly confidential and edit the label. We are not changing any information at this stage. You will reach the auto label for files and emails. Now remember, the highly confidential label is only accessible to the COVID-19 research group. So let's turn that on. Click on the add condition and then content contains. So basically we instruct the auto label for files and emails once they detect this pattern, which we're going to configure now, to mark it as highly confidential. So we will click add sensitive information types, and then let's look for our newly created COVID-19 custom SIT, which you can see it here. So select that and add. So we selected the COVID-19 data and we select the medium confidence. So medium confidence, higher confidence. So lower confidence, we don't really want to bother with it now. So with instance count of 1 to any, we will detect that and we label it. So we will automatically apply the label regardless. And then we click next. We are not changing anything in here. And then save label. And then we click done. Now, before we go any further, if you recall from SBD episode 4, when we did set up the AIP scanner, we had a lot of files already exist on the company network file share, as well as the on-premises SharePoint infrastructure. Those files also contain some COVID-19 related, but we don't know where they are, what they are, etc. So just to confirm, the COVID-19 research group, they have a network share called research, and they have this folder structure. So let's randomly select work in progress and then select that file. So if we double click on that, you can see it has similar file that we selected before, but it's not identified as highly confidential or anything. It doesn't have any label on it. So as you can see, if you go to the sensitivity label button, nothing is selected. If you also recall, when we did set up the AIP Scanner demo, when we set up the scanning job, we did not enforce any labeling because by then we didn't have any labels configured. Maka set up the demo after the fact of AIP Scanner setup, and we didn't have any DLP until the day we didn't configure the DLP. So let's go back to the Azure portal and update the AIP scanning job to make sure we enforce the labels as we find the data for the on-prem scanning job. All right, now we are logged onto the Azure Information Protection portal. Let's jump onto the content scan job. And if you recall, this is the content scan job that we configured in episode 4 from this series. So let's click on the SBD file share job. We are not going to change anything at this section, as well as the DLP policy section, because we don't have any DLP configured so far. Now, under sensitivity labeling policy, we will start enforcing sensitivity labeling by clicking on and then save. Now it will ask you to run a full rescan because you basically changed the enforcement option. So click yes. So once you saved, go back to the scan job list. You will see the same scan job, but now the enforce has a check mark, which means it's now enforcing. And the job is currently running scanning. So let's check on that after a few minutes. Now the scanning job is completed. Let's go have a look on the reports for the AIP scanner before we actually check the files. So we will go to the scanning job reports and try to access the Excel file and see if there are any changes. As you can see, it's clearly actioning the highly confidential one. As you can see there, it applied or enforced, in the right term, the highly confidential label on the applicable or the document that matched the criteria for the highly confidential. And here, under the information type name, you can see clearly for those files that we discovered the US Social Security number, data, etc. So it's clearly enforcing the highly confidential label. Now, you might ask, because Meta has set up all the other labels, why we are not seeing any other label enforced? And that's because, if you recall from earlier, we had to do some extra configuration work to make sure the highly confidential label can detect any COVID-19 data, which we call the auto label on the client side. Now, let's log back in to the AIP portal and have a look on the data discovery. Once you click on the data discovery tab, exactly as we saw in episode 4, the only difference is now that we can see COVID-19 data, and it's clearly showing in there that we now can discover COVID-19 data on our on-premises repositories. Now, let's filter the information type just to narrow down our search. So COVID-19 data and filter. So you can see clearly that we have 26 documents and that 13 files in each repository. So again, if you click on the company file share, you can see exactly the path of the file, the name of the file, and if we have protection applied or not, etc. All the information again. And again, please refer back to episode 4 for more details about this part. Now, let's go back to the network file share and inspect the actual file. Now we're back on the company network share. Let's go to the research work in progress. So basically, we're inspecting the same exact file that we inspected earlier. Remember, when we opened it, we didn't see any label on it. We didn't see any watermarking, any footer or header. So let's open it again. Bingo. Now you can clearly see that the exact same file that didn't have label before now has a highly confidential label. So with that, we enforce the highly confidential labels on every COVID-19 related piece of information that we have on our on-premises SharePoint servers, as well as the network share files. And here you go. This is the custom sensitive information type configuration. So basically, anything from now on related to COVID-19 research will be detected, whether it's in the client side or sitting on the on-prem file share or on-premises SharePoint. What is missing? Good question. So in the next episode, Brendan will take us through the auto label, the server side, and he's going to be using the sensitive information type, the custom one that we just created, to detect any COVID-19 research related data. Till the next episode, see you.
Welcome back. Thank you for watching so far, and I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to watch our next videos in this great scenario-based demo video series that we prepared just for you. Also, make sure to check out our one-stop shop resource page that we prepared just for you that contains all our resources from the MIP CXC team. That's at aka.ms/MIPC/OSS. Thank you, and see you on our next videos.